In today's video, I'm going into our thoughts and our beliefs, how they become self-fulfilling prophecies, and as well how those self-fulfilling prophecies become our reality. So thank you for joining me. I'm AmyC with You Finding You. I'm an intuitive and transformational coach, and I help individuals like you start to become aware and connect into yourself, into finding that aligned place and being able to create magic. And in the dialog box below, you'll see that I have linked to my Patreon page, which we go more in depth and we get more connected with yourself into this awareness and weekly doing different things that will get you into and raise your vibration, but then get you into alignment. So again, do check that out. It's in the dialog box below. And so this week, I'm going into how we create our realities. And I was thinking about this one of self-fulfilling prophecies. And like yesterday, I was talking about myself not believing I was good enough. And so I was always seeking out evidence and proof of not being good enough. Because we have this then bias in our brains and our thoughts of like, this is my belief, so I then have to prove it to myself. And an example too is last year I was getting to know a guy and I was like, this is going to really progress and happen. But in myself, I didn't believe that I was worthy. And so I always attracted in guys that would show that to me. You know, like the kind of attraction that I brought in was guys that they too had their own things and beliefs around themselves of not worthy. And they then would sever the relationship, you know, like it would then end at a certain point. But that was then proof to me, you know, it's like proof to me that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy. And so I tend to, or was, attracting in these kind of guys that would just continue to show that to me. And if we look at the guy's side, they possibly had fears of rejection, again, around their own worth and their own value. So it's like they're proving to themselves that they're going to be rejected, and then they create this pattern in themselves of being rejected, and or they then reject you before they're going to be rejected because they have this belief and pattern in themselves. And for me, it was around my own worth of like, I'm not worthy of being accepted. I'm not worthy of being wanted. So when I was rejected and let go, it's like, see, again, I'm just proving to myself that I'm not worthy. And so another example of this self-fulfilling prophecy and how we create it. For years, I was traveling and I always had this feeling inside of me of it's going to work out, everything will, you know, like I'll get where I need to be and I'll be okay. And I flew standby for many years, which means that if the flight is full, you're not going to be on the plane. So you then have to wait for the next flight and the next flight and the next flight. And sometimes you might have to spend the night at either an airport hotel or in the airport or something, and then fly out the next day. So I had these experiences from traveling for a long time of like, am I going to get on this flight? Am I going to be on the next one? And I started to step into this place in myself of just knowing it's going to work out. It's going to happen. And so in one case, I flew into LAX and the flights the rest of the day were full and booked up, and it was like, this isn't going to happen. Like, how am I going to get, you know, continue on my journey? And it turns out that there were others that were also in the same predicament, and they looked and they found that Orange County, which was, you know, a fair distance away to drive to, actually had flights. So it was a handful of us then that got together and we took a taxi and we split the taxi ride, you know, and splitting it actually made the cost more cost effective. And then we were able to continue on our journey. And in this case, it's because in myself, I was like, yeah, I know I'm going to continue on and it's going to work out for me. So it was the self-fulfilling prophecy of knowing that I'm going to make it happen. And so you're looking around, you're seeking out how to make it happen Versus if I had the attitude of just being like, well, I guess I'm stuck here for the day, it would just be kind of like, well, I'm sitting back and I'll hope maybe I can get on the flight. Maybe I can, like what can happen? And so it was like I wasn't taking or wouldn't be taking action in the same way that I would if I knew and believed. And it was like, yeah, this is going to happen. So it is really seeing how these patterns in us then create that self-fulfilling prophecy. Like with each of these examples, it's that underlying belief that you have in yourself that it's like, oh, this can happen or this can't happen. And then you do or you don't take action, or you do or you don't pay attention to the things in the same way, because your brain is like, oh, you're saying you're not going to be able to do this. Okay, so I'm not going to, see these things as potentials that could make it happen. So you can see in this how our thoughts and beliefs really then start to form this reality around us and really start to confirm or, not confirm those things in our beliefs, in our, core stories that we're telling ourselves or the thoughts that we're telling ourselves. And similarly, I think I shared the story of my thoughts around getting work and doing work in visual effects. And at the time, I was like, yeah, I don't want this work. So I didn't actually put in the steps or make things happen. Versus when I actually was like, I really want this to happen, I started to become more aware. I started to pay attention. I reached out to friends and community and made things start to happen. So it'd be interesting to look into yourself then and say, what are your beliefs around certain things? Is it like around travel or around work? Are there things that come up that say, no, I can't do this? And what is it that is coming up and why do you believe that? Or what is it that is happening inside of you that is like, nope, can't have this? And you'll create that self-fulfilling prophecy of, yeah, well, you can't have it because you believe you can't have it. Versus if you can shift those thoughts into a place of knowing you can, even if you're not sure how or how it's gonna, form or happen, but having this underlying belief that you can. And like my travel story, it was this underlying belief of something's going to happen. And I never would have thought of Orange County, like, oh, it turns out. And then there was a handful of us that all wanted to do this. So it's things that it's like, I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's trusting and knowing that this underlying knowing in myself that things will work out, that it can happen. So again, you can look at things in your work life, in your home life, in your relationship life. What are those beliefs that are underlying it of, can you have these things or can't you? Or can you have it created in your life or not? What are the beliefs that come up inside of those areas? So thank you again for joining me today. And if you are enjoying and getting value out of these videos, do hit that like, share, and subscribe. Thank you again. I'll see you in the next video.